Okay, viewers have been asked a question. Why don't you do a video on the atrocities the Israelis and the US are doing? That's who you've got to be fearful of. Well, I can assure you I'm not fearful of them. But I'm going to honour that and do a video, War, Causation and Atrocities, a Critical Framework. Before calling something an atrocity, ask a harder question. Not how many people died, but what decisions made those deaths possible. War is one of humanity's greatest evils. But intellectual honesty requires more than counting casualties. It requires tracing causation. Number one, the problem with casual use of the word atrocity. Atrocity is not a synonym for people died. Every major war in human history has produced civilian casualties. If civilian deaths alone prove atrocity, then nearly every military campaign in history becomes an atrocity by definition. The word loses meaning. Atrocity is a serious accusation. Serious accusations require serious standards. And the question is not merely how many died. The question is what happened, why did it happen, and who caused it. Number two, causation matters. Number two, causation matters. Wars do not begin in a vacuum. When armed groups murder civilians, launch rockets, invade territory, kidnap hostages, conduct terrorist attacks, they knowingly create a chain of consequences. Retaliation is not an unforeseeable event. It is often the expected outcome. And the side initiating hostilities understands escalation is likely. Therefore, any serious moral analysis must examine the initiating act. To discuss casualties while ignoring the event that triggered the conflict removes causation from the discussion. Without causation, there can be no meaningful accountability. Number three, foreseeability matters. Foreseeability matters. Leaders understand consequences. They know retaliation may come. They know civilians may suffer. They know infrastructure may be damaged. They know war may spread. The question therefore becomes, did those initiating violence knowingly expose their own civilian population to predictable retaliation? And if the answer is yes, responsibility expands beyond the battlefield. The moral burden begins before the first retaliatory strike occurs. Number four, civilian suffering does not automatically identify guilt. Civilian suffering is real. Civilians' deaths are tragic. Destroyed homes are tragic. Displaced families are tragic. Yet suffering alone does not automatically reveal who bears primary responsibility. A victim can suffer terribly while the deeper chain of responsibility remains elsewhere. The existence of suffering answers one question, responsibility answers another, and confusing the two creates moral confusion. Number five, human shields and urban warfare. Modern warfare often occurs inside civilian environments. When military assets are placed within schools, hospitals, apartment blocks, residential districts, religious facilities, civilian infrastructure, UNRWA buildings, under hospitals, childcare centres, etc., civilians' risk increases dramatically. This does not automatically justify every military response. However, it changes the moral equation. Those who intentionally merge military operations with civilian populations knowingly increase civilian danger. Ignoring this reality while counting casualties produces an incomplete moral ledger. Number six, tragedy is not automatically an atrocity. Not every tragedy is an atrocity. By the sound of it, it sounds like some people might think that the Twin Towers was not an atrocity. That October 7th was not an atrocity. Not every tragedy is an atrocity. And I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's what I'm starting to think a lot of people think. And an atrocity generally implies intent, policy, systematic conduct, conduct, command responsibility, deliberate unlawful harm. And the burden of proof should therefore be extremely high. High casualties prove casualties. They do not automatically prove intent. They do not automatically prove policy. They do not automatically prove atrocity. Those are separate claims requiring separate evidence. Number 7, the incentive problem. When casualty counts become the sole measure of moral legitimacy, dangerous incentives emerge. Public attention shifts towards images rather than causes. Emotion replaces analysis. Narratives replace evidence. Political actors may discover that visible suffering becomes strategically valuable, and the public sees consequences. The public rarely investigates origins, and this creates a distorted understanding of the conflict. Number 8, the selective outrage problem. A principled standard applies equally. If hostage taking is wrong, it is wrong regardless of who does it. If targeting civilians is wrong, it is wrong regardless of the flag of who does it. If human shields are wrong, they are wrong regardless of ideology. If disproportionate force is wrong, it is wrong regardless of nationality. Selective outrage is not morality, it is partisanship. Consistency is the true test of principle. Number 9, separate roles, separate responsibilities. The side initiating violence bears responsibility for starting the conflict. The side responding bears responsibility for how it conducts that response. For instance, right now, Iran's sending missiles into Israel and shooting American assets out of the sky and whatnot while there's supposed to be a ceasefire. Maybe that's justified. Each to their own opinion. I don't think it is. Which means those that do think it is believe Iran should have a nuclear weapon. The side initiating violence bears responsibility for starting the conflict. The side responding bears responsibility for how it conducts that response. And these responsibilities are different. They may overlap. They are not identical. And failure to distinguish them produces analytical collapse. Number 10, the central question. The deepest question is not, were there casualties? There always are. The deepest question is, who made the decisions that made those casualties likely, foreseeable, or inevitable? Who started the conflict? Who escalated it? Who rejected de-escalation? Who embodied military assets among civilians? Who conducted the response? Who violated the laws of war? Who benefited politically from the continued conflict? And only after those questions are examined can terms such as atrocity, war crime, retaliation, self-defense, and collective punishment be used with intellectual integrity. The war itself is judged not merely by casualties, but by its causes. Casualties tell us what happened. Causation tells us why it happened. And without causation, intent, conduct, and accountability, the word atrocity risks becoming a political slogan rather than a serious moral or legal judgment. So I'd like to know, since I've put my effort into this, why Israel and US are causing atrocities and why I should be fearful. So if you could respond to that, I would love that. Until then, I hope you enjoyed that.